This video is presented by EA Game Changers. Hey there troops, it's me TheTacticalBrit, and I recently attended a Battlefield 5 War Stories capture event where I got to play through the war stories that will be coming to you guys at launch. And I've recently released an impressions video to give you guys a rundown of my opinion and my feeling on the matter. But today I wanted to bring up something else, and this is something that has stemmed from the impressions video that I felt deserved to be talked about by itself as more of a discussion. You guys know that I love doing that on this channel, and looping you guys in and having a conversation about everything Battlefield related. And that is the direction of war stories, and this is something that I think has come up a few times prior to it, but now that we've actually played them through and really given them a good go and seen what they're like, is the direction of war stories the right one to go in? So, to give you a rough idea, the current direction of Battlefield 5 War Stories is to tell an untold story. Battlefield 5 is not aiming to be a World War II game like any of the other games. It's aiming to try different things and approach different stories that haven't been done before. You won't get your Stalingrads, you won't get your D-Days in the campaign. However, you'll get stories that you've never played before, and stories that are fresh and original that nobody has really ever looked into. And I think this is a take that has caused some controversy. I think some people are like, you know, whoa, I really wanted to see D-Day and the new Frostbite engine and blah blah blah. While some people have sort of said, actually, you know, I kind of like the idea of trying something a bit new. And today I wanted to give you my impressions of it as somebody who has played the war stories all the way through now and really got a good sense of what the war stories are like. I got to play short segments of Terrier and Under No Flag, and I got to play the entirety of Nord-Lys, so I have a pretty good estimation as to what the overall tone of these missions are and what it's hoping to achieve. I also had a brief presentation with Daniel Berlin prior to us actually going into the capture session, where he explained what the overall vision and the plan was for war stories, and that they were aiming to really try and bring about these stories that history hasn't really neglected, but just hasn't simply looked at. So from the very beginning of the war stories that we played, it was pretty clear that Battlefield is trying to do things differently. It doesn't want to be repeating patterns, and it doesn't want to be doing things that have been done before. I think the overall theme was to really get the grand sense of scale of World War II into the war stories, to really show people just how huge this conflict was and why it was called a world war. You know, just how incredibly vast it was and how much was involved in that conflict, and how much, more importantly, at a personal scale was involved in the conflict. I think it's very easy to look at history and look at conflicts in the past and just see them as dates and figures. You know, 65 odd million people died on this day, or, you know, a couple 100,000 people died in this battle, and there's no real sense behind that. We've become very desensitized to the notion of loss. And I know this is a video game, you know, you are running around blowing people's faces off, and it's supposed to be fun because you're having a good time doing it. But what I really liked about war stories and the direction that it's taking is that it really does humanize World War II. It takes these individual stories that are from very different parts of the war and really tries to bring them back down to earth. You're not just this random super soldier in this, you know, conflict where you're some one-man army who's going to go and assassinate Hitler all by yourself. You are somebody who is fighting for individual causes during World War II. You're a Norwegian resistance fighter. You're a French colonist that doesn't actually know France. You've never seen Paris or France before, but you're fighting for France. Or you're this criminal from Under No Flag who never really cared about the law, never really cared about, you know, your country, so to speak, and all of a sudden you're being deployed into North Africa and being told to blow up stuff. And I really like that approach, and honestly, it seemed to me that the overall perspective of Battlefield 5 War Stories was that it isn't just one story. It isn't just World War II, the big story. You know, we get slapped around for a bit, then we march into Berlin, and it's all, you know, happy daisy, and it's all fine. You know, it's one big happy ending. Because ultimately, World War II is just one huge loss of life. You know, no war or conflict is something you want to participate in, ideally, in an ideal world, so to speak. And I really think it does get that message across. Like, there's a few scenes in the campaign, and I won't spoil any specifics or anything about them, where you're really questioning the morality of everything that's going on. It's not really a case of like, you're right, the bad guys are wrong, it's all happy roses, let's just kill all the Nazis. It's a case of like, this is a really difficult conflict for both factions that you don't really necessarily want to be involved in. Like, how do you maintain your humanity? How do you fight in a conflict that is so brutal? And, you know, where are the lines of brutality? And I really like this approach. And I've got to say, I know this has been a controversial topic because people do really want to see that D-Day stuff. They want to see Pearl Harbor, they want to see D-Day, they want to see Stalingrad, they want to see all these big staging points of World War II that we've come to almost symbolize the conflict in. And I understand that, I get that, you know, seeing that stuff in Frostbite, without a shadow of a doubt, would probably be amazing. But I think what they're aiming for is actually a better formula. You know, I can go ahead and watch 6 different films about, you know, D-Day and the march back into Europe and taking back Europe. And we've seen it 100 times. You know, we've seen Band of Brothers. We've seen everything like Saving Private Ryan. It is just one big old return. Every once in a while, they'll release a new World War II film. And I think the World War II films that have been really successful are the ones that actually tell stories that are a bit different. Like Hacksaw Ridge, for example. That was the Pacific Front. That was something that we haven't actually seen a lot in World War II theatre, in World War II TV series. And they tried a story that was more humanizing. It wasn't about, you know, this big World War II conflict where you're the man that's going to save the day. It was this World War II conflict where one guy was making a difference in one individual battle. And that was all it was about. And I think that's the kind of message that gets across in this. You are that one individual in this one place. Maybe it's Norway, maybe it's North Africa, maybe it is mainland Europe. And you're really fighting your conflict and your belief for that individual battle. And it kind of gives this really good juxtaposition. And that's a very big Englishy word, I know. But it gives this really good contrast of like, you know, this is this huge scale conflict that's, you know, mesmerizing and awe-striking in a lot of ways, in contrast with this conflict where this one person is really just trying to make a difference where they can. And I really liked that. I think that was a really good take on what World War II looked like. I think the Norwegian resistance mission was very personal. I felt the French mission with the colony soldiers was very politically motivated in some respects. But it wasn't politicized. It wasn't like, oh yeah, you know, we're going to show off all these soldiers because nobody cares about them because history, and let's be right about things. It was actually just it was a video and an experience about soldiers being underappreciated in World War II in whatever format. In this format, it was colony soldiers, but of course we know that there have been soldiers from all over history. Irish soldiers, for example. Soldiers from some of the places in America. You know, Southern state Americans weren't typically thought of very highly in World War II. They were under-respected. They were underappreciated. And it really gave these good messages of like, you know, individual will and the will to get things done. And I think every war story, and I know this has been a very long video talking about all these different feelings I have, and it's just been such a long day, man, I'm going to cry, it's all a bit mad. But like, what really impressed me, and this is a good summary, we'll go for it, is that every war story tried to paint a picture of a global conflict at a smaller scale, where you actually felt as though things mattered, if you know what I mean. It's always very easy to do this big World War II scene with this, you know, we're going to snipe Hitler from across the map, and that's fine to do, but let's talk about the individual nuts and bolts, the individual cogs of the war machine, the individual losses that made this conflict happen and made this conflict successful for the Allies, and I think that's what made it really cool for me. So in summary, is War Stories taking the right direction? I know people want to see Stalingrad, I know people want to see D-Day, I do too. And I think it would look great in the Frostbite engine. But I'm actually happier with this direction, and I think most people when they get round to playing it will be too. Because it's a direction that's different, but it's not different in a way where it's overly forcing to try and be different. It's not like this really weird forced attempt at just doing different things. It's an attempt at humanizing conflict, and I think that's such a really powerful way of doing a first-person shooter where the natural in-game mode is I'm going to blow things up and have a good time. It really made you think about things, and I like a campaign that makes you think. I like ethics, I like morality, I like that stuff to be all twisted up in there and all messy, and I think that was exactly what this accomplished. So troops, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Of course, feel free to ask me any questions, seeing as I have played these through now. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again soon in another video.